Now, the phenomenal popularity of open-world games simply cannot be overstated. There are few things the gaming masses love more than to be thrown into the middle of a lush, teeming world and left to their own devices to explore it. And open worlds don't get much bigger than this lot, which with their near boundless level of freedom tested our collective thirst for exploration to the absolute limit. So grab your camel backpack and make sure you put gel inserts into your boots, as we're going to be hoofing it for bloody ages. As I'm Jules, this is FGS, and these are the 10 biggest open world games ever. Yet, you know what, this is actually a task way too big for just one egg, so I've taken Metalhead React's suggestion from last week's episode that we'll be featuring later on in today's list. And if you want to be part of next week's video, then have a think on what you'd select as the best starter weapon in all of video game history. Right, with that in mind, let's hit the road. With number 10, Atlas. Put on your sea legs and glug a tankard of rum, because first we're talking about a swashbuckling survival MMO, Atlas. Create a pirate, build a ship, form a crew and sail the mind-bogglingly immense high seas in pursuit of treasure, with Atlas's gigantic map comprising of 700 separate land masses spread across roughly 17,000 square miles. Sea of Thieves, eat your bloody heart out. To put this figure into proper perspective, developer Grapeshot Games calculated that it would take players roughly 30 hours to sail from one end of the map to the other, and that's only if the wind conditions were favourable. Yeesh. However, it's worth noting that critical and general player opinion are both firmly mixed on Atlas as a whole, with many citing the fair emptiness of vast swathes of its open world. The game's ambition is laudable, even if the dev team might have ultimately bitten off more than they could chew. Number 9. The Lord of the Rings Online. The exciting prospect of giving J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth the MMO treatment speaks for itself, and for the most part, The Lord of the Rings Online delivers on that lofty promise. The game certainly came right out of the gate with a tantalizing boast, promising a world spanning 30,000 square miles, easily dwarfing the comparatively teeny 80 square mile map of its vastly more popular competition, World of Warcraft. Though it never toppled World of Warcraft and is firmly showing its age these days, having launched in 2007 and all, the game still enjoys active support almost 2 decades on, with the most recent expansion releasing in 2021. Despite its clunky elements, it offers a beloved, charming rendition of Middle-earth that's been pure catnip for fans, and better yet, its gigantic map size wasn't merely a trendy number for the developers to gloat about while promoting the game, it actually feels largely earned. Number 8. The Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall. Now, you probably quite reasonably assumed that the biggest map in the Elder Scrolls franchise would belong to Oblivion, Skyrim, or the Elder Scrolls Online, right? Well, not quite. The winner actually came all the way back in 1996, with the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall's map running at 80,823 square miles in size, making it more than 1,000 times larger than the maps of Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim combined. But the world of Tamriel featured here isn't just a flat, endlessly sparse nothing burger, it contains over 15,000 distinct locations, from dungeons to temples, taverns, towns, farms, and so on. As for how Bethesda pulled this feat off almost 30 years ago, well, they relied upon procedural generation to do the heavy lifting, which, while divisive in the modern gaming sphere, was boldly ahead of its time back in the mid-90s. Sure, it results in much of the game's world feeling recycled if you spend enough time in it, but Daggerfall's technical accomplishments are still nothing to be sniffed at. Number 7. World War II Online. Our last stop before things get really insane is World War II Online, a massively multiplayer online FPS which drops players into a half-scale map of Western Europe in the midst of the war. The game's Steam page boasts that World War II Online's map size is an eye-watering 300,000 square kilometers, or roughly 115,000 square miles, with no instances or zones separating players from one another and no upper limit on the number of players who can do battle together. Though it's fair to say that the gameplay and graphics have aged like milk left out in the summer sun for a week, and the online community is basically on life support these days, the ambition on display for a game released in 2001 is nothing short of astonishing. If you were playing this at its peak, World War II Online was a formative multiplayer FPS experience, years before Call of Duty came along and sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Number 6. Cyberpunk 2077. And so we come to Metalhead React's suggestion, and at first I, likely similar to you watching this video right now, raised a Millhouse level eyebrow at the thought of Night City and the surrounding wasteland being included on this list, as technically, per square foot, it's a game world that tops out at the higher side of medium rather than comical clown shoe large. Still, Metalhead Reacts actually makes a great point here that sometimes a game world doesn't need to be oversized to feel large. And when you consider how lived in and overlapping the architecture is in this game, you start to understand just how much of a small gear in the big machine you are. With people living on top of one another, thousands of side streets and spaghetti-style junctions forever rammed with traffic, you are but a speck in the massive oil spill of Night City. This is emphasized even further when you leave the city to explore the remote wasteland around it, because no matter where you turn, its looming presence dwarfs the horizon, making it feel far bigger than its actual digital footprint. You might leave the violence, decay, and burning neons, but Night City is always with you. Number 5. Microsoft Flight Simulator. 2020's Microsoft Flight Simulator painstakingly simulates the geography of planet Earth to deliver the most mesmerizingly photorealistic flight sim ever made. Using 2 petabytes, that's 2 million gigabytes of data, the devs of this game allow players to fly across an accurate rendition of our world, spanning the entire 197 million square miles of Earth itself. The game includes 2 million cities and towns, 1.5 billion buildings, 2 trillion trees, and the vast majority of the 40,000 plus airports around the globe. And in case that's somehow not enough detail for you, you can even sync the in-game weather to real-time weather data for wherever you're flying to. It's nothing short of a flabbergasting achievement, and a fantastic way to appreciate the utterly brain-breaking scale and natural beauty of planet Earth, without ever having to drop some serious dollar catching a flight across the world for real. Number 4. EVE Online. And now we leave the stratosphere for space with EVE Online, which, with over 20 years in operation, is one of the longest-running MMORPGs in gaming history. It also happens to be the biggest, with the sci-fi game's massive sandbox encompassing 7,800 solar systems for players to explore, mine, or indeed wage war within. Now, in fairness, space being, well, space, vast chunks of the game's map are nothing but an empty void which you'll typically warp between, which means it's not necessarily a fair comparison with more curated MMO worlds. But even if you remove all of the dead space, EVE's significant map size is still well over 250 million square miles, and that's a fairly conservative estimate. That level of rigorous immersion is likely why EVE still retains thousands of concurrent players at any time of night or day, no matter how long it's been on the market. Whether you want to chill out on your own in a far corner of the galaxy or go hang with others, this game has got you covered. Number 3. Minecraft. Even EVE's expansive game world has nothing on Minecraft though, which offers up a sandbox totaling, wait for it, 1.5 billion square miles. That's approximately 8 times the size of Earth, and it makes it far and away the biggest land-based open world in the history of gaming. Minecraft gives players functionally infinite space due to its procedural generation tech, ensuring that no matter what fresh nonsense you want to build in your game, you're going to have all the room you need to do it, and then some. And honestly, for a game that's concerned with freedom and expression above all else, would anything less really suffice? Even so, that's a head-spinningly huge game map, and the fact that it was developed for an adorable sandbox game with no inherent goal makes it a really head-spinning prospect, and it definitely added to its stunningly unexpected appeal when it launched in 2011. Number 2. Elite Dangerous. Back into space now then for Elite Dangerous, which one-ups Microsoft Flight Sim's one-to-one recreation of Earth by doing the very same thing for the whole damn galaxy. This online space flight sim allows players to explore the entire Milky Way as a seamless open world, a distance so vast you might get a debilitating migraine just considering thinking about it. You're able to explore 400 billion star systems, each of which have planets and moons that orbit in real time, while 150,000 star systems are accurate to real astronomical data. Beyond this, our old buddy procedural generation comes in clutch once again, filling out the rest of the galaxy based on scientific models. And in case the unfathomable scope of this game wasn't somehow apparent yet, as of early 2023, only 0.059% of the galaxy has been discovered, despite players exploring 236 million separate star systems since launch. Wow. And yet, Elite Dangerous somehow still doesn't take the number 1 spot. Speaking of which, number 1, No Man's Sky. All it took was a small 17-person team to deliver the biggest open world, or rather open universe, in gaming history. No Man's Sky's absurdly vast procedural universe contains 18 quintillion planets, a number so ridiculous you'll likely need to chuck it into Google just to make sense of it. To save you the time, that's the number 1, followed by 18 zeros. To paint a more vivid picture, the sci-fi survival game has 256 unique galaxies compared to Elite Dangerous's single one. And so on a considerably more defeating scale than that game, it's basically impossible for players to collectively see even a tiny fraction of everything the game's world has to offer. Though No Man's Sky has a famously shaky launch, with developer Hello Games criticised for over-promising and under-delivering on the content within each planet, they've certainly made pains to make up for it, with extensive and meaningful post-launch support for almost an entire decade following. And the state that it's in now is pretty bloody brilliant. And there we go, my friends. Those were the 10 biggest open-world games ever. I hope that you enjoyed that, and let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. And remember, if you want to be part of next week's video, then have a think on what you would consider to be the best starter weapon in all of video game history. Let me know down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Instagram and AX, where it's at RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope to speak to you soon. Hope you're treating yourself well. I'll catch you in a bit. Bye.